Okay, on today's epic saga of the great FE build, we got to pull this motor out of the car because this intake, heads, carburetor, distributor, all that is going to go on to the new motor. We run these heads on every one of them. Heads, I'm not going to tell you much about. You're just going to have to use your imagination. But I will say they are date coded correct to this car. They are the factory 1963 heads that came on this car. That's all I'll tell you about those heads. The heads are highly classified information. So let's get this out.
All right. So let's look at what we got to do here. Heads, intake, suspension tank, ignition system, all that comes off. It goes on that motor. Water pump system comes off, goes on that motor. Headers just stay with the car. So the top end of this thing come off and go on there. I want to make a point here with this motor. If you go back in my videos, you'll see me take this motor that was completely stuck, completely locked down, get it freed up, throw heads and intake on it, throw it in this car, because the plan was to make one race.
Give me the excuse that it takes too much money to do this, because here's the truth. I've got about $150 in that motor right there. And that's the cost of the gaskets. Now, granted, I had most of the stuff laying around here, but as you can see, it wasn't good stuff. But this motor was supposed to live one race. If you go back and watch the videos, I'm actually kind of shocked when it really actually starts. I never thought it would start. I done the compression test. I think there's a video on it. I think it's 60 or 80 pounds of compression on the best cylinder. This motor's shot, but it was supposed to live one race. Shady side of 2021, the final race, so we could do the best we could in the points. Live through that. Parts wasn't ready for the Georgia race, the first race. So we had to fall back on the old faithful here. Live through that. Hell, Shady Side rolls around in North Carolina, and we still wasn't ready with a new motor, so to fall back on it again. We thought we was going to fall back on it for this race. We got 7 days from today, and I have to be at the racetrack. 7 days from right now when I'm filming this, and I got to be at the racetrack, and I'm just now pulling this motor out. Well, my point is, you can get out there and have fun without spending a ton of money. This motor was never going to win races, but let me tell you this. This car is almost 4,000 pounds. This motor made respectable passes. Don't think the motor makes a winning car. The motor is just part of the equation. The other part of the equation, suspension. And we've been working on that. We've got the suspension dialed in good enough on this car now that motor right there is now equaling ETs of the good motor that was in it Knoxville the year before. That's not knocking the motor that I had in it before, because it made real horsepower. That's just saying that the suspension was that bad before, and suspension plays a big deal in this. So let's get this motor jerked out of here and get the parts we need to finish up this motor.
All right, she's out. Let's take a look at what we got. It's awesome. There's no oil leaks anywhere, other than what it's blowing out the dipstick hole and the breather ports. But other than that, oh, and yeah, bone stock 1963 fuel pump, date coded 63 heads, the heads that came on this car. Yeah, you don't need no fancy parts for a race, but I want to address something right here while I got it out. This block is a late 60s block. I don't remember exactly what year. I can look on it. I think it's a 68 block, but I don't know for sure. It will be stamped on it. But I'll look at that in a second. Here's what I want to address. Early blocks, 64 and down, had motor mounts that had 2 bolts in them. Went in there, that was it. Doesn't matter. You'll hear people tell you that you cannot run the early mounts on a late model block because it won't work. And then they try to sell you one of these high-end, super expensive adapters to make the early mounts fit the more modern blocks and all this nonsense. These are the factory 63 mounts on a late model block. You just use the back two holes on the block, bolt it up, the motor drops right back in where it's supposed to be. Do not fall for the trap of buying parts that you don't need. You want to buy them, but you don't have to. The question is, what are we robbing off of it? Well, when I'm done with this will be a short block again. The heads go on the new motor. Intake, new motor. The water pump system goes on a new motor. This oil pan, yep, new motor. Because that's a nice Milodon oil pan with baffles in it and all that stuff. And I got stock oil pans laying everywhere that can go back on this thing. And it can go on to live in something else. But it's pretty much going to flip-flop. That motor will pretty much look like that motor by the time I'm done. And let's look again. These heads, I won't tell you anything about these heads other than, just so everybody knows, other than these are, like C3 heads. These are 1963 heads. That's all you're getting told about those heads. But those heads go back on there. These are the same heads I've run from the start, and they will continue to be run. This intake, our rules mandate what intake we can run and can't run, so this intake has to go on a new one. The ignition system goes on a new one. This water pump setup, this is a new water pump. And we use a Moroso drive to turn the water pump. This is a stock replacement water pump. It's nothing special, but it's new and I've already paid for it. Oil filter adapter. I won't reuse the oil filter. I will put a new oil filter on it. I mean, there's no sense in us being just completely cheap about it. But yeah, so this is pretty well gonna get stripped down and go to the other one. I mean, look, I even splurged. I put the nice Milodon freeze plugs in. I mean, come on, people. I mean, apparently I didn't spring for any kind of gaskets. I just used Permatex. But again, this motor was only supposed to live one race. So let me clarify some misinformation out there. And I will disclaim this with, take my advice at your own risk. I'm going to tell you what I do and what works for me. You hear a lot about the oil mods you need to do to an FE. The FE requires oil mods. You'll suck your oil pan dry, and oh, my neighbors, buddies, uncles, third cousins, mechanics, brothers, distant aunt said her husband sucked an oil pan so dry it crushed it like a beer can and just sucked it right up into the motor. Horse shit. Listen, I'm not saying oil mods are not a good thing, but there's a reason behind it. It's because you don't need to flood your valve train with oil, and these kind of will. But you're not going to suck your oil pan bone dry at some magic RPM. Now, you've seen in the other video the oil mods we done to this block over here, or at least a couple of them, and how I do them. So I do some oil mods on this car because this car is a race car and it is going to live in a high RPM range. Now, what oil mods I did to that motor? I put oil in it. Not even good oil. I put like gas station oil in it. Like the stuff that just says oil across the damn thing. I mean, you know, I need a bottle of oil, you know, and it just has like the white label and just says oil and like 30 weight or something. I don't even know what it was. Matter of fact, I don't think it was all the same. I think it had like 2 of one weight and 2 or 3 of another. Yeah, that's the oil mods I put on that one. That motor was turned 7K every time it went on the track. Did it make power at 7K? Nope. That's where that's where I'm set up. That's where I'm set up at, and that's what I turned it to. My point is, I turned it 7K with 5 quarts of oil. You didn't put an extra quart in? No, I didn't. I put
put 5 quarts of gas station oil in it with no oil mods. And it still runs. Can you believe it? It still runs. Take it for what it's worth. If you're going to build a race engine or performance engine and you're going to beat the living snot out of, and that one right there has 3, that one right there has 10 or 12 passes on it, somewhere in that neighborhood. And if you're going to beat one constantly, I do the oil mods to it. I put a good oil pan on it, and I would go through all that stuff. But what my point of saying this is, if you're rebuilding a motor to put in your daily drivers, you're going to drive out and back to the grocery store or drive to church on Sunday, or restoring a car and you're going to take it to the cruise in once a week or once a month, or take it out of the garage twice a year, or whatever your case may be, man, forget that crap. You don't need to worry about modifying everything. Put your motor together and enjoy it. That motor right there had never been apart when I took it apart. So that motor lived for close to 60 years with no oil mods. And then I throwed a bunch of junk at it with a good set of heads. And again, if you'll go back and watch my earlier video, I don't do the oil mods to my heads. I do all my oil mods to the block. So that motor has had no oil mods to it. Made past it, still cranks up and runs. Just the information, take it for what it's worth. I know somebody out there is going to argue with me and tell me that they've personally seen an oil pan suck up to the block, or they've personally witnessed every drop of oil be sucked out of the oil pan. Here's the deal. We're buying into I won't even call it a myth. I'll call it a thought that every FE engine is suffering an oil return. Unless you're turning your motor, and I'm going to be generous here, and I'm going to say 5,500 RPMs. Unless you're turning your motor 5,500 RPMs or more regularly, don't waste your time. Guys, I know this video was kind of boring. There wasn't much going on, but again, I'm trying to keep them short. So the next video, hopefully tomorrow, I will be out here disassembling that motor and then start reassembling this motor, and hopefully we can make some power. So tomorrow we should be making some really good content. Today was kind of, I wanted to get some more content out there and hopefully keep folks interested. Hey, y'all share these videos. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Definitely hit the like button, and help us grow the channel. Till next time, God bless you.